Tennessee midway through spring camp. This spring camp midway report is brought to you by our friend Ray Varner. Local, you can trust, innovation you can afford. RayVarnerFord.com. RayVarnerFord.com. And Caleb, midway, what do you feel like you've learned about this football team? And you can check it out on offthehooksports.com, as Josh Ward was nice enough to do a write-up for us. This football team, I think that the offensive line, what I know now that I thought or wasn't 100% sure of, I think this offensive line will be very, very good in the fall.
Okay, that's a good one. I could see that with the offensive line. What stands out to me is Tennessee is Josh Heupel's really leaning towards his highly touted freshmen to immediately step up and be stars. I think he has a big belief in it. He called out Mike Matthews and Boo Carter last week in a good way, specifically shouted them out. But more importantly, on top of that, given the running back issues with Cam Seldon out, Jalen Wright and Jabari Small gone, I think Peyton Lewis, when he arrives in the summer, is going to become immediately the starting running back, quite honestly. So I think Josh Heupel's what I'm getting is he's going to rely a lot on freshmen.
Yeah, and running back depth is a bit of a question, but really running back depth, Josh writes this in his column. Running back depth is always a question in spring camp because you don't want to get your good guys hurt. So the guys that need to get out there and play are the Cam Seldons, and he can't play anymore because of a shoulder injury. Him missing that 2.5 weeks of practice is really going to hurt him in the fall. If Dylan Sampson missed 2.5 weeks of practice, he'd be just fine in the fall. So running back depth is a position. Is a question for the upcoming fall, and the Seldon injury doesn't help that. Tennessee's football team, their defensive line has a high ceiling. Totally agree with that with Josh. I think it has an incredibly high ceiling. I was talking with an NFL scout about could it be the best, as Tim Banks, Tennessee's defensive coordinator, said in the SEC. And he had to think about it. And he said, I don't want to speculate right now, but Caleb, simply the fact that he didn't say, whoa, you're crazy, I thought was a pretty good sign for Tennessee's defensive front.
Yeah, I agree. I think Tim Banks is asked, he has a very difficult job. I mean, it's not a desirable job.
Horrible.
Yeah. I mean, it is like, if there's such thing, like everyone says, like, what is it? What's the most thankless position on a football team? Is it the left guard? Is it the guards? They're the most thankless positions on a football team, right? The offensive guards.
No, it's the holder, because I bet you don't even know who the holder was last year.
Yeah, but the holder's not as valuable. The holder's so replaceable.
If he drops one.
Okay, yes, maybe the whole. I think on the offense or defensive sides, I think it's the guards. Like Tim Banks is basically the equivalent of a guard.
So Tony, this is something I'm going to write about. So does Tennessee go into the transfer portal for a running back? I usually hate the spring transfer portal because I don't think you get an immediate impact there. I love it in this regard. Go get a running back in the transfer portal. I think that's a very, very good move. But you like Peyton Lewis so much, you kind of didn't think so much of my idea over the weekend.
Well, because of Tennessee's lawsuit that has put everything on hold against the NCAA, the spring transfer portal is about to be very different now, and I want to tell you guys why.
It's not going to be different the next few weeks, is it?
Yes, it is. Yes, because the NCAA can't do this anymore, which they had been. You can tamper. So the reason we didn't like spring transfer portal running backs or players in the past is because if they transferred in the spring, well, that was because they couldn't play where they are at. Now, you could go to players who are planning to stay where they're at and just target them and say, hey, why don't you just transfer and come to my school because we can give you more money.
Wait, now I haven't seen this in printed form. How is this proposed, or how does this possibly work? Because it sounds crazy to me that you could call Bob, who just finished his practice at Alabama, and say, I'm with Georgia. Would you like to come play football for me? And what are you guys working on today? That seems strange.
Every bit of the NCAA regulations on the NIL were struck down by the court in that Tennessee lawsuit because the judge basically said they're going to lose this case. Any regulations they have limits a player's ability to make money. So right now, tampering is legal in the sport because the NCAA literally is not allowed to regulate it. Courts won't let them.
So you can just tamper. Why are they not tampering now?
Oh, you don't think they are? It's just the transfer portal hasn't opened yet. I guarantee you when the transfer portal opens, you're going to see much more. You're going to see many more quality players enter the portal after spring this year than you saw last year. They're tampering. I'll tell you that right now. I don't have any inside
Well, they
reports
were
on that,
anyway.
guys.
I mean, the lawsuit didn't change it. They were anyway.
Well, okay, but this is what people say all the time. Like, if they're breaking the law anyway, then making it legal is not going to change, or making it illegal is not going to change anything. I'm like, well, no, people will break it more brazenly. This is like anything. Okay, let's talk about like legalizing weed. The argument is like, oh, people will smoke it anyway. Yeah, and that's fine. But like, if you legalize it, more people are going to smoke it. Okay, so it's the same with like tampering. Yes, paying players. Yes, they were already paying players before NIL, but that doesn't mean they were paying them nearly to the level they're paying them now. The rules did curb it.
So let me ask you this then: why are they not calling Quinshon Judkins right now?
The Ole Miss running back?
Yes.
I mean, might be.
He's transferred to Ohio State. He's clearly a bag man. He's about the money because he went to Ohio State, so you can buy him for a price. And that's the type of guy right there. You call with the right number, you're going to get him. You don't have to sell him on the facilities and all that stuff. And the tradition, he doesn't care about General Nealon. He cares about whoever's on his paycheck. I mean, he's worried about. Go ahead. Sorry.
How do you know they haven't called him?
I don't, but I'm saying call him.
They might have.
Now, there's a rule from transferring from one SEC school to another in the spring period, but maybe this rule is defunct now too, that you couldn't transfer from school to school within the conference. So can you not do that either? Or is that even a rule that anybody has to pay attention to?
I don't think that's a rule. I don't think there's any transfer portal rule possible. I think it's just all out they are.
Okay, so you're saying moving forward. I know it was a rule a month ago that in the spring period you couldn't transfer from school to school within the conference.
Right. You've been I'm
with you. It's like when you have a car totaled. I mean, you don't go out and pull the muffler off of it and say, "Oh, I got a great muffler." Terrible analogy. Newbert Collision Center, for nearly 50 years, Newbert Collision Center as East Tennessee's best choice for quality repair work, including mufflers, and fantastic customer service. Joe Newbert Collision, joenewbertcollision.com, Newbert Collision Center. Remember them if your kids, for instance, maybe over the weekend was involved in a little fender bender. That's Newbert Collision Center. Again, Newbert Collision Center. So why are there not rules? I mean, what? Because
basically the lawsuit basically said it's an antitrust violation to have any regulations that would limit somebody's ability to maximize their revenue. Well, banning tampering limits their ability to maximize their revenue.
Okay.
Honestly.
All right. Josh Heupel's not going to do this because it's kind of classless. But why doesn't Lane Kiffin hop in the car or hop on a plane and show up with a couple of hostesses on each arm and a big fat check? I'm talking about one that looks like the publisher sweepstakes check. Is that what it's called? Yeah. I'm talking about he shows up at the door and he goes, "Bob Jones, you're the best pass rusher in the entire world of college football. Here is your $10 million and Julian Sissy." So why doesn't he do that why can he do that if he's got the free time without spring practice going on, that he can just go to a school and start actively recruiting these guys? I mean, are there literally zero rules?
You don't think he's doing that?
Well, I mean, I know he takes pictures from individual campuses, but I thought that was just he takes pictures from like Tennessee's campus, Alabama's campus, on and on and on to show you that he's recruiting there. But Caleb, that was for the winter period. The spring period should be off limits if you want the good. Depends what you want. Do you want the good of college football? The spring period is off limits, or do you want what's right as an American citizen? And that is go out and do what's best for you and your family. And where do you stand?
I mean, again, you're asking, do you want altruism or do you want the money? And this is America, baby. When has America ever put altruism over money? Like, That's what people. That's capitalism, is it not? I mean, it's capitalism.
Okay, there's some monstrous competition at 2 positions. We'll get to 4th down, and that's brought to you by our good friends Dynasty Pools and Spas. Just imagine having the best spas made right here in the United States of America in your backyard. What about that? Dynasty Pools and Spas, their showroom is open in Athens right off the interstate. You can stop by and check out the best hot tubs and spas in the market. And then delivery, yes, they can do that to Knoxville or Chattanooga. They've got complete support, spa cover, and chemicals to keep your spa bubbling at its best. They also have pool chemicals as well. Dynasty Pools and Spas, amazing discounts for first responders, military, and even some blemish models that can save you a ton, and no one will ever notice. Mention Off the Hook Sports, get $500 off. Mention Off the Hook Sports, get $500 off. Dynasty Pools and Spas. Go to dynastypoolsandspas.com or stop by that showroom in Athens. dynastypoolsandspas.com. Dynasty Pools and Spas. Bonus for Dynasty. We weren't doing 4 downs, but that's fine. I still want you to answer this question because the discussion was Tennessee's midway spring practice report. Josh Ward wrote on this on our website, offthehooksports.com. The last thing that he wrote about the topic that I think everybody cares about and is excited about because they touch the football, right? It's pretty simple. Serious competition at wide receiver 1 and then defensive back. I go back to what you said about Matthews and Carter. I think that Josh Heupel went into a lot of seasons, and I call this the season of fiscal year, so to speak, having a pretty good idea of who's going to play where at receiver because he didn't want his quarterback to look bad, which that could still happen. A receiver could run the wrong route, and it looks like an errant throw. And at defensive back, I think he felt like he had somewhat of a good feel, but he almost didn't care because he knew all of them weren't that good. But this ties back to your youth movement. I think you're going to see youth in the defensive backfield, and I think you're going to see some youth at receiver as well. I don't know that Tennessee is going to up and rotate their receivers because they haven't to this point, but I'm not ruling it out either.
Yeah, I don't think they will. I think Heupel just wants Matthews to work out well. We had Heath Schuler on last week to talk about how the receivers have to break on routes and react to the way the defense plays, which that's really very much I feel like the Patriots really started that, didn't they? Or I mean, I guess Spurrier did too, but the Patriots are really big on Charlie Rice react to what the defense does. Do you think it's easier to pick up the offense in Josh Heupel's system as a quarterback than it is a receiver? I feel like it is.
Well, no, I think it's the same. I think you're reading one guy. I think you're reading the safety. I think I don't think that there's a big difference there. And if you make the wrong read off of safety's keys, then you're going to be absolutely in a bad shape. And I think Nico's going to have a couple of balls this year where people are going to scratch their head and say, whoa, what happened there? He's as errant as Joe Milton. But no, the receiver ran the wrong route. I think you're going to see that happen a couple of times. Not a lot, because Tennessee has some upperclassmen receivers. They don't have to go the Matthews route. Caleb and I just both think they will.